All right, we're going to go ahead and put our hook in the vise, and this is a size 10, but it's a 1x short, so it's technically would be a size 12 bug. And I like this because it helps the fly to always land with the hook point down. So we're just going to go ahead and do a little base coat of thread, and then our first ingredient, which is the hare's mask dubbing. And the more important thing with this than the material itself is the color, and this is an orange. I like it because it adds a little bit of a hot spot or some contrast to the bottom of the fly. It's not really going to look like the tail because you'll see the tail is actually going to be the foam itself. But this, it adds a little bit of contrast, and then the second thing that it does, which is helpful, is it makes sure that the foam doesn't roll as much. It's not as apt to do that. So we do a little bit there, and then we're going to go to our foam. And this is a 2 mil. The original Yeagers, he's typically like the ones that you buy from Umpqua, are going to be two-toned. And so they're actually thicker than 2 mil, but I find if I'm tying them myself, or for somebody that's newer to tying, a 2 millimeter foam is a lot easier to work with than 3 mil or even 4. So we cut out little rectangles, and then we're just cutting a V into them. So we're tapering the body just through our scissors. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going to take that and take the thin side to the back, which is going to be in my left hand now. Do 1 or 2 wraps to secure it in. Then we're going to go behind the foam and in front of the foam. And that's going to help secure that foam down and make sure it doesn't roll as much, because that's always what you're fighting with foam. The next thing that helps with that is also Zap-A-Gap gel, Loctite gel, any type of gel super glue is really helpful because the gel gives you a little bit longer work time than just a brush-on style. So I do the bare hook to the foam, and then we're going to do dubbing over top of that. So what happens is the gel super glue is going to soak into our dubbing. We don't need that much. Yeah, that much. This is just Senya's laser dub. Again, this is the color that we're looking for, and I like the longer fibers that Senya's laser dub does on this fly. So we're going to dub it up, and I'm just going to do 1 or 2 wraps over the crease that we made. And then we're going to jam this dubbing into there. Now, this dubbing is not as important in creating the profile of the fly because the foam is going to naturally do that. The dubbing here is more for helping this thing to orient correctly on the hook shank. Keeping the foam on the top is mainly the reason that we're adding that there. So we did a little dubbing ball, and then we just take the foam, cup it down, tie it in. Really simple. And then we're going to go ahead and do a couple more wraps just right on top of the foam, securing that down. And from this point forward, it's a lot of similarities to Lance Egan's Bionic Ant. So we're using a parapost wing. We're going to take out 1 strand. And I'm just going to fold it in half and chop it. So that gives me 2 strands that I'm working with here. And I use this stuff a lot. It's a synthetic material. It's kind of stretchy. Virtually has no bulk that adds once you tie it in. So unlike other materials that are really thick and create this giant clump, this stuff has basically 0 buildup. So you can add a lot more things to it, which is why I use it on Bionic Ants or the 409s like what we're tying here. You can see how thin that is. So we tied in the 2, fold back the other 2, and tie them down as well. Just everything is pointed backwards towards the tail. Then I do this. This is not on the commercially tied ones. This is orange parapost. I'm just going to take 1 strand of that. I'm going to cut it, and we are going to tie this guy in. Same way, but we're looking for 1 strand, so I'm not even going to fold this over. And this just gives an extra little flare that you can see, which is one of the things I really like in particularly small stream patterns, is something that floats well, something that can support a pretty heavy nymph. And then I always pretty much add a hot spot on my dry flies because it just makes it to where I can be a little lazier. So added that in and cut it. Then we go to our next step, which is centipede legs from MFC. I really like these things. This is the small. They do one size smaller, which I think is called either mini or micro or something like that. But we're just going to cut off one strand. And you get a ton in the pack for what you pay. So it's really good value. And the barring I find on these is really good too. So this is the yellow and black barring, just like a Yellow Sally. And again, just like a bionic ant, we're going to tie in those legs on the side and do a couple wraps. Just get them oriented to where you want them to be and make sure it all looks good. We're going to get our next leg, which I'm going to have to trim that one to make it match. It's a little longer, but that's okay. Do a couple wraps just to secure it down. And I don't usually go crazy tight with my thread wraps because I don't like the possibility of ripping them or cutting them with the thread. So honestly, one of the things I do that keeps it in is going to be another dab of super glue right on top of this. And that's going to hold everything in place. It's going to hold the parapost straight up, your legs on the side, and then the hackle, which is the next step. So this is a size 12 Whiting Farms Grizzly hackle. It's really common, and pretty much any cape or saddle that you find, you're going to find a feather that's suitable for this. So went ahead and prepped it, which is just pulling off the barbs, and then I'm going to tie that in just by the stem. And you'll see that gel super glue is really going to help everything adhere together too. So it's one of those things I like to do because if I'm out fishing for a full day, I don't like my flies to fall apart. And we should be able to get 4, maybe 4.5 wraps of the hackle, just placing them right in front of each other. And be able to do one more pass underneath. Then we're going to tie it off right there. So that super glue is now going to bind all that together too. And we're tying that in tight and secure as it is, but it's just extra. So I'm going to go down and cut the stem of that, which is kind of difficult to do with a camera in my way, but got that cut. Now I'm going to go right to behind the eye. I'm going to fold up the foam with my left hand. So you can see you can push that back down as you want. Push it up just to finish though. And then we're going to whip finish the fly and then do all of our little cosmetic beautiful things, which is going to be first cutting the thread. Then we're going to make sure our legs are oriented right because that super glue still hasn't set. I'm going to cut the parapost white a little bit farther than the yellow is, so just a hair longer. And then those little straggler dubbing fibers, we can go in and cut those, and also comb out the wing because sometimes the parapost, when they treat it, it kind of bunches up, which is fine. But that is it. It is a 409. I love these flies on our small streams. They are great. You can make them look like just about anything.